Good morning, everyone. This is Sam Allred. I bring you greetings from my home office in Heber City, Utah. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This webinar is an introductory webinar. It's about a program that I put together with Gordon Frater. We're as excited as 4-year-olds on Christmas Eve. So I'm excited to share with you what we've done. And I've got 30 slides or so, 36 slides, and I won't take probably more than 40 minutes to go through it, maybe less than that. And would encourage, as I always do, I'll take any questions at the end. You can chat them at any time. I'll see every one of them here. You can chat them and go to webinar, and I'll just see them on my chat screen. I'll likely take those at the end, any questions that you have. And just a reminder, we are recording this, and so it will be available. And I think we just automatically send out the link to it to you so that you can use it with anyone else in your firm or share it with somebody that you think may benefit from listening to it. I really believe you'll find it helpful more than just an understanding of what we put together. I'll also share in part an understanding of what we've learned on the journey, and I really believe you'll find that helpful as I go through that. So let me just kind of start with a few slides that kind of set this up. You know what we get to do in Upstream Academy, and we do consider it a huge privilege. We've been blessed to do just, I think, what I always say is a boatload of fun, enjoyable, exciting things with a profession that we dearly admire and respect. And so we work, if you take the top 600 firms in North America, we work with 480 of those firms. So we're well connected, love the profession, have a huge desire to try to help the profession. And I want to share one thing that we have learned about effective leadership. This isn't so much in the last year that Gordon and I have worked together in this program. It's just been a journey of my 32nd year in public accounting and 17th year full-time working with the profession in the role of a consultant. I'll just share this. I've known and associated with hundreds of leaders in our profession, and without just stating it honestly, some have been more impactful than others over the last 3 decades. And I've learned an important lesson about leadership, and this is it. The most reliable indicator of effective leadership is the ability to create positive results. To leave a wake behind yourself as a leader that consistently leaves things better than you found them, that is what I've learned about effective leadership. Everybody has different personalities, different approaches, and whatever, but the litmus test for me is look at the results. Are they consistently positive? Can you leave things better than you found them? Can you move the dials you want to move? That to me is effective leadership. And so it leads us to just a slide that I have on change. Change in any firm is difficult. Ask anyone who's tried. It's difficult at any level with any initiative. I just got back last night from facilitating a managing partner roundtable group retreat for the past 3 days. Managing partners who have become really good friends. I respect every one of them. And one of them who I consider a very dear friend, during that meeting, during the course of that meeting, just asked me, kind of almost as if it was in private, so how do you think our profession is going to do? Because we had talked about all the things coming towards us. And my response came out more negative maybe than I feel about the profession. I love our profession. I have such huge respect for it, consider myself so blessed and privileged to be able to work in it as I have again for just over 3 decades. But my response to him was very succinct. Well, we have to change everything, and we suck at change. And that's really one of the big concerns I do have about our profession. We literally do have to change about everything. I'm leaving this weekend at the end of it to go do another retreat, facilitated retreat for 7 managing partners of arguably the best 7 firms in our profession. They're all very, very progressive firms, very successful firms. And as one of the managing partners in that group said to me as we were planning it, if we want to be successful in 10 years, we will look nothing like what we look now. Those will be the successful firms a decade from now, will be those who least look like they look right now. So our retreat is all about a deep dive. How how do you change so many things in the firm that need to change, significant things. Now, these are firms that probably look at this and to some degree have had a pretty good success and track record with change. Most don't. Here's what I always find sobering. When I look at the data, the research, the findings, this is it. Studies show that 70% of all change efforts fail. That's, by the way, across organizations, not just firms, but our firms are no different than that. Let me just tell you that, having worked 17 full-time years with the profession, we're not different than that. And for most leaders, that's not an impressive track record. Think about it. Here's really what it means when you read that. Studies, or you understand that. Studies show that 70% of all change efforts fail. It means this. Almost every change initiative begins with great anticipation. This is what we're going to get. This is how it's going to impact us. These are the positive steps forward. And somewhere along the way, excitement turns to frustration, and the desired change seldom occurs. And in most firms, in all honesty, it's repeated over and over again. And so consider the impact that failure rate, 70%, has on every member of the firm, and the impact it has on firm culture. So here's what's been amazing to understand. And the time that Gordon and I have spent really researching, and what we did is we looked at 50 common change initiatives that we try to change within our firm. A lot logical ones. I'm going to share some of those in just a few slides, but very logical things that we want to change. And yet we see a 70% failure rate. Here's what we found to be almost amazing to understand. In many cases, and maybe even most cases, the strategy behind the change is sound, and the change vision is the best thing for the firm and its people. In other words, you're often, as leaders, focused on the right thing for the right reason at the right time. It's not a timing thing. It's not the wrong thing issue. So why is there so much failure? Why then do 70% of change initiatives fail if we're choosing the right thing and the strategy is sound and the timing sound, and everybody's going to benefit from it, or most everybody's going to benefit from it? Please listen carefully to this, because this is really the crux behind what we're doing with this program. The majority of these failures, more than 70% of the failures, are people issues. They're due to employee resistance to the change and our leadership behavior that doesn't support the change or isn't committed to the change. So in other words, more than 70% of the change failures are not process failures. It's not because we haven't chosen the right steps. They're people failures. We haven't properly prepared the people and created the culture that will allow initiatives to thrive and be successful. So here's the root cause of most change initiative failures, and this is a small list. I give you 4 things, and there are probably 10 out there, but these are 4 major things. Firm members at all levels who are securely anchored in the status quo. They're vested in keeping things the same. Firm leaders who will not give spirited commitment. They give what I always like to call grudging compliance, and I always say you can spot it about 100 yards away, and that's true. They give grudging compliance, not spirited commitment to the initiatives. And I always have pointed out negative obedience is always weak leadership. It doesn't get you anywhere. I'll do it because I have to, but I'm sure going to show that I have to rather than I want to. A firm culture that keeps individuals from voicing concerns and engaging in open, honest dialogue. Way too much of what Patrick Lencioni always calls artificial harmony. And then a culture that fosters a genuine fear of failure. And I would tell you, whenever you have artificial harmony, you have a genuine fear of failure. You cannot have anything other than that. And I'll tell you, that third bullet here is a major issue that firms struggle with, that keeps their change initiatives on the high fail rate, because they don't have a culture where people can honestly and openly share their concerns about things. So as I mentioned, Gordon and I studied 50 different common change initiatives within our profession that have all had, by the way, a high rate of failure. And in most cases, the strategy behind the change is sound, and the firm and its people would benefit from making the change. So I want to take just one example. I want to just focus on one example, one of these, to better understand really what's happening. So let's look at this example, and it's common in our profession, and analyze it. Almost every firm in North America has tried to implement a plan to remove their worst clients from the firm, those clients that we commonly refer to as D-level clients. Every firm on the planet has done that, probably multiple times. And the vast majority of leaders of firms will confess pretty openly that the goal of trying to remove those D-level clients has been, for the most part, an almost complete failure. So why? And follow along with me as I go through this. So the change initiative is sound. As I've been saying, most of these change initiatives, it's not like we picked the wrong thing. They're very sound. There's a host of reasons why this one is sound. I give you 4. There is a host of reasons. Here's the top 4. These clients, these D-level clients, put a pit in the stomach of everybody that has to deal with them. Almost everyone dislikes the experience that occurs every time you have to do anything with that client. The clients undervalue our services, and these are just the words I like to use. They treat every invoice we send them like an invitation to a debate. And that causes reluctance to record and bill all the time spent on their behalf, because you know it's not going to be received well. And that leads to frustration when I really can't record the time I'm spending on their behalf, because I know it's going to get written off anyway. These clients live in what Stephen R. Covey calls Quadrant 1. If you've read any of his books, that was in almost every book I've read of Stephen R. Covey, it was in those books, the time management matrix. And Quadrant 1 is everything urgent and important, and we get sucked into that quadrant, and it consumes our time. Well, D-level clients live in that quadrant, and they require everyone that serves them to get into that quadrant with them, which is, by the way, parenthetically, why I will not work with D-level clients. I've been in that quadrant. I don't want to go back. And I want to stay as much as I can in Quadrant 2, which is things that are important but not urgent, and that's where the quadrant of quality is, according to Mr. Covey, and it's true. And I find it takes great discipline to stay in Quadrant 2, and D-level clients are the most undisciplined clients on the planet. And so if you work with them, you get sucked into their world, which is Quadrant 1. And the 4th bullet, they are demanding and often high risk. They're always cutting corners. They're willing to throw other people under the bus. They play the blame game. Basically, those are just 4 of about a bunch of reasons why it makes total sense to get rid of these clients. But we struggle to do that. So if it makes good business sense, I'm going to stay on this one example for a minute. If it makes good business sense to get rid of these D-level clients, and it would be in the firm's best interest to do so, why have most change efforts in this area failed? And this is so important to understand. Too often, firms focus almost all their efforts on the steps they're going to take, the process to bring about the change, and spend way too little effort on the people side of the equation. So if you think about the steps most firms take to get rid of their worst clients, here they are. And they're logical. Management starts by believing that the initiative makes sense. Now, there's never been an initiative without belief on the part of management that it makes sense. Logic would tell us that. Management then sits down with the partners and convinces them to accept the change initiative for all the reasons why it makes sense, the ones I listed just on the 2 slides ago, and more than that. And there's often great effort to help the partners see the wisdom behind the initiative. Then the criteria, often of A-level through D-level clients, is identified or developed, and then it's applied to clients, and then those who end up with the D category, partners are expected to fire those D-level clients or remove them from the firm, hopefully find a soft landing for them somewhere else, and they're given a reasonable period of time to get them off of the firm's island, so to speak. End result, there's few bus stops for bad clients. You might, with some firms, you might add a few extra steps for some firms, but the point I want to make is that for the most part, the steps are logical. It's not a step problem of why we're seeing so much failure with it. And so often we think just get the right steps and we're going to have success. So here's the takeaway that I would give you of what Gordon and I have found spending so much time together on this issue. If you look only at the process you're going to follow, again, process is steps, and the communication you need, you're going to fail to help your partners and staff see the why, what, and how of the change. And firms often fail to enlist their help and don't provide the training needed to help people make the change. We've got to just simply spend more emphasis here because this is where change is most often killed. So here's the key principle to understand. When focusing on successful change initiatives, we want to have success with all of them, place equal emphasis on process. I'm not trying to belittle process. Heck, I'm a huge fan of process. Those of you that know me know that. But place equal emphasis on process and behavior, how people behave in pursuit of the results. Both are vitally important. So if what I shared with you in the previous slides, if they strike at all a familiar chord and they seem all too familiar in your firm, if it's felt like, as Yogi Berra used to always say, it's like deja vu all over again, then that's what this webinar is about. That's what this program is about. That's why we've worked on something to develop it. What we really did, I've known Gordon for 20 years. Consider him a dear friend. He's one of the consummate professionals in our profession. I always enjoy the time I spend with him. We've talked for a long time about wanting to do something together. We knew a long time ago he was going to step down as managing partner of Plant Moran in July of this year. As we sat down, our number one goal, as it usually is within Upstream Academy, is we don't want to do something unless it's going to be impactful, unless it's really going to be beneficial, unless it's really going to make a difference. And so we started with what is the biggest issue we face in our profession, and that was a pretty easy answer. I said that earlier. We got to change about everything, and we suck at change. And so what we said from the very beginning is let's figure out why we stink so bad at change, and let's figure out how we turn that around, how we actually become really good at changing things rather than bad at changing things. So that led us to develop this, the Leading Positive Change Workshop. As it says, it's an advanced leadership workshop. It really is, and it really is a workshop. But I'm going to walk through it and give you some detail for what it is. The primary focus is singular. It's to help you achieve better results by simply teaching the leaders how to lead positive change within their firm, how to significantly improve the results of your change initiatives at all levels in the firm. So here's a very concise overview. It's a 3-day workshop, and that's not entirely accurate. It really ends at noon on the 3rd day. Now, it does go a little longer than 5 on the first day or first 2 days. But it does end at noon, so it's not exactly 3 entire full days. It is going to be held November 14th, 15th, and 16th. It will be in Chicago. It will be at the Chicago O'Hare Aloft Hotel, so it's out by the O'Hare Airport. There will be a follow-up session that's held roughly 6 months later or so. We want to be very honest with firms that are their participants and allow them the chance to say, hey, this worked great, or these parts didn't, or this is what I'm still struggling. That will be remote. It won't be in person, but it'll be, I don't know if webinar is the right word, but it will be a connectivity session where we can share, and there'll be a survey afterwards in those interim months, and a chance to really share results and where we at, what do you need to focus on, a chance for participants to report back on their progress. Class size is limited. It's a workshop. It's not a lecture. It's not a conference. It is a workshop. So it is going to be limited. It will not be huge in size. There are seats. I'm not overly worried about that, but it will not be huge in size, just simply because we're putting people in table rounds and putting them to work throughout the entire 3 days that we're together. And so it really will be very workshop oriented. Here's who we anticipate attending. Very simply put, leaders in firms. From the very top, managing partners or CEOs, those who are on management teams at ECs or boards, those who are heads of offices or departments or service lines or segments or industry groups, those in the firm who have a responsibility to lead change and get better results. That's who we anticipate attending. The key elements of it, let me just kind of walk through these key elements. I've mentioned that Gordon and I, who have known and worked together for years, are going to be the instructors. Most of you may know me better than you know Gordon, and so let me focus on him for a few minutes. I've mentioned to you that I've known him for 2 decades. Consider him a dear friend for the past 2 decades. He is, in my mind, the consummate professional. He's warm, he's approachable, he's extremely bright. He really gets it. And really the reason, I'll just simply say, the reason why this is the perfect thing to work with him on is he's lived this. In his firm, Plant Moran, I'm amazed at what they can do. I'm amazed at how agile they can be, given the fact that they're about a $600 million firm, largely without mergers. They've done one significant merger in their history. They have just built a culture that understands change is constant. And what's our role in change and how do we need to do it? In other words, they've built a culture of change. He has so much to add to this. It's been such a delight to work with him on this, and how much he adds to this. I'm just thrilled and excited about that. He stepped down, as I mentioned, at the end of July as the managing partner of Plant. And so I'm excited that he's got some time and can join me, and he's as excited as I am to be able to teach this. We are taking a very holistic approach to change. We're focused on, because I'm so process-oriented, yes, we really are following a process, but it's a process that leans heavily on the people side of the change, because that's where all the problems have been. That's where all of the issues have been with this. Let me kind of walk through, in a sense, very quickly, the agenda that's in this. Notice in day 1 and day 2 and day 3, there's different seating assignments. You may come with other people from your firm. We hope that you will. We hope that there'll be multiple people from your firm in the leadership ranks. You very likely will not be seated together, so that you know that. We're going to mix up the seating. You're going to work with your peers. You're going to work on problems. Here's kind of the agenda. And again, it's going to be very much exercise oriented, but we're going to start with, after the welcome introductions, we're going to discuss 10 key principles of effective change. And I'm going to talk about that in an upcoming slide. And then we're going to take a really deep dive into what I briefly covered. Why do most change efforts fail? To really understand them. There's so much to learn there, to know. If you're going to hike Mount Everest, and I'm not trying to say every change initiative ought to feel like Mount Everest, I will say some of them do, but if you're going to climb Mount Everest, you ought to know what you're getting into. It's not a casual stroll, and you know what I mean. Change is not a casual stroll. And so we're really going to understand and talk about, why do most change efforts fail? And then we'll discuss the best ways to create a culture for change. Gordon's experience is going to be invaluable there. How do you really create a culture where people are suspect of it, constantly trying to fight it, whether they do it knowingly or unknowingly, constantly undermining it? How do you really create a culture for change? We're going to take an in-depth look at how to develop and enable change agents, knowing that nothing changes without a catalyst. And how do you properly do that? We're going to talk about, how do you really measure change? What constitutes a moving needle, especially with subjective change initiatives, as so many of them are, you got to know if you're making progress to keep people enthused. And then we're going to spend all afternoon on the change process. Each team is going to select, I said to you that Gordon and I have done 50 case studies. Each team is going to pick whatever case study they want to work on, problems that are common to our profession, and they're going to take them on. And they're going to go through steps to create action plans and what the benefits of that change would be, what the barriers that stand in the way, what constitutes moving the needle, and how they really create a plan to go about making that change successful. And then they're going to present that. Each team is going to present that to everyone else. And the participants will act as partners in the firm when they listen to the presentation, the action plan, and they'll give honest feedback, and there'll be an opportunity to go revise that. That's a learning process to work together on how do we really present change, involve people, develop a plan, and execute it. That's what we'll do in the first afternoon. By the way, if you look at that, we'll do that the second afternoon as well. Different team, different problem common to our profession that you take on. The second day, we're going to talk about the danger of passive resistors. The most challenging resistance to any change is the passive resistors. We're going to talk about how to select what to change, what to focus on. How much change can one firm really handle? One of the biggest mistakes otherwise good leaders make is taking on way too many change initiatives, and it kind of gets crushed under its own weight. They try to move too many dials at one time. We're going to talk exactly about the kind of communication that needs to precede the change, happen during the change, and happen after the change. And then again in the afternoon, we're going to go to work, different team seatings. The second day, go to work on another assignment. Day number 3, we're going to talk about the discipline needed for success. The last step in the change process is disciplined execution. And honestly, too many firms are guilty of setting uphill goals and having downhill habits. And we're going to talk about what it really takes to keep moving the dial and having success. And then we are going to talk about the importance of celebrating change. Celebrating positive change is a tool for cultivating a success mindset. When you notice and celebrate positive change, then everyone in the firm, all your team members, start to see the firm as being successful rather than trying to be successful. That's a big deal. And then one of the things that we're doing the third day, knowing that our profession has to make some significant changes, Gordon and I are sharing exactly the top changes that firms need to make and what they ought to be doing about those changes. And then we're going to finish it with, as we usually do, with some thoughts and words of wisdom and golden nuggets. We take notes throughout the 3 days, and we send everybody that's in the workshop the notes. So it's highly interactive, as I mentioned. You get a chance to work alongside peers in different team assignments and to really solve problems and give feedback. It's not a Pollyannish session. It's very open, very honest. What do we really need to do to have our people involved and buy into the change, and especially have our partners involved and buy into the change? I mentioned key principles of effective change. You know, we see a principle that says here is a tenet, an anchor, an enduring truth, something that doesn't change. Something that doesn't change just because the market changes. And our learning, our experience has been always this: good things consistently happen when we follow correct principles. So Gordon and I have spent the time to really say, based on what we've learned and seen and followed, what are the right principles when we're trying to change something within a firm? And throughout the workshop, we will be focused on these 10 principles. I'm not going to take the time to go into them in depth. Some of them are self-explanatory, some are not. But survey large fields, cultivate small ones, have success early and build on it. Don't expect immediate buy-in, especially from your partners. Celebrate what you get to measure. If you can't measure it, you can't celebrate it. The importance of creating a robust communication plan, and we'll talk exactly about what that means. Avoiding the strategy of hope. I think you've heard me say that now 1,100 times, but I watch too many people live the strategy of hope enough to know it doesn't work. Remember, the fish stinks from the head. That's all about leaders and the responsibility to lead change and not fight it. Apply gentle, relentless pressure is about that disciplined implementation. Identify and enlist the influencers. I'm excited to share with you how impactful that can be and how, honestly, in some cases, how easy that can be, and yet we don't do it. And then beware of unintended consequences. So often we look at the wrong KPIs, we look at the wrong things, and we get the wrong results because of it when we're trying to implement change or even encourage change within the firm. And so all of those principles will come back to time and again throughout the workshop. They're spread throughout the workbook in a regular way that you'll continually see these principles and begin to understand what they really mean. Unconditional guarantee is just really what we stand for in Upstream. I mean, from day one, 15 years ago, we felt strongly that everything we do at Upstream Academy should be unconditionally guaranteed to our clients' full satisfaction. It's exactly what it says. If somebody pays the fee and comes and it isn't what they need, ask for a full refund. If they get partial benefit, ask for the partial refund with any and everything we do. Our team understands our guarantee. We talk about it regularly, what it means. And really, in a sense, it means to us, we've got to be good at what we do, or we ought to be giving everybody's money back. We need to make a change, or we ought to be giving everybody's money back in everything that we do. Our leadership programs, every single thing that we do, we're focused on delivering value, or everybody ought to say, give us your money back. CPE, as you would expect, there's CPE with that. It's going to be somewhere in the 22 credits for the workshop, somewhere in there. It'll be based on how many 50-minute segments we're there together, but it will be somewhere over 20 CPE credits for that course. The investment for each person to attend. This is really a Harvard-level course. It really is. With the instructors, the approach, the workshop, and what we're doing with it. And each person, it's $3,500. If participants are from the same firm, it's $3,250. If participants are UAN members and coming from the same firm, it's $3,000. So that just gives you some idea of what the investment is in addition to your airfare and lodging while you're there. We provide the meals. Other than you're on your own for dinner, we provide breakfast, full breakfast, and lunch. You're on your own for dinner. Dinner comes after 6 o'clock because we work till 6 both nights. And then I'll just kind of end with this thought and then take the questions that are coming in that are being chatted in. We love to help firms and individuals in our profession improve and get better. And I believe that we've really established a successful track record for doing that. We're confident that this program will make a significant difference. We're confident that firms need something like this to get way better at change, and they themselves can look and say, what's our track record? Have we been successful having success with everything we've set out to do, or the lion's share of what we've set out to do? So let me then take questions that have come in. I see a couple of them. If you've got any, just chat them in, and I'll just respond to those. First question, if you were to pick a couple people to send to this program, would you send the people who have demonstrated the most skill at changing culture, the people who have been more of a boat anchor to change? I think I see where that one's headed. This isn't a turn somebody into a convert session, so send the former. Send people who have had success, and the skills that we teach them and the insights that we give them and the tools that they walk away with, they'll have even greater success. Yeah, it's possible somebody could come and this would be the wake-up call, and they could become a disciple of change. That's not really what we're designing this for. So we're always had a no prisoners approach to training. Don't send us somebody that needs to be fixed. Send us somebody that's pretty excited to learn the skills they need to be more effective in the future. Would it be appropriate to have a firm administrator attend? Yeah, the slide that gave a list of who we think might attend, it's just people in leadership seats. There are some firms, probably, well, I was going to say some of the smaller firms. I've seen some really powerful firm administrators, obviously in the larger firms as well. But if a firm administrator, anybody, we don't care what's on their business card, we're not checking those at the door. If somebody's been a leader of change and has a responsibility to help change happen within the firm, then this would be a place for them. The third question, will there be any prerequisite work required for this workshop. Not really. There's a couple articles that we really find intriguing. They're only a few pages long. That will be sent out for those that register. And so we're not going to assign books. That's a good way to turn everybody into a liar. Did you read it? They just nod their head out of peer pressure and don't really want to do that to somebody. So not a lot of advanced requirements. Come with an open mind and we'll fill it. You're going to go to work. But there are a couple really, really good articles that we're going to send that we think that we want to discuss throughout that and not just take the time right there. Plus, we want people to really think about them deeply before they come. So there'll be some articles that are prereq that somebody will read before they come. So those are the questions that I've seen and responded to. If you get any others, here is my email address, ma@Upstream Academy. I assume that you all have that anyway, but if you get any other questions, send me a detailed question. I'll send you a detailed reply, and happy to do that. Thank you so much for spending the time. Hopefully we'll see you in November. I think that you'll be excited. I know you'll be excited about what we put together, Gordon and I, with this. And as I've mentioned, we're like 4-year-olds on Christmas Eve. Thanks so much for participating. Have a fantastic day. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.